Donald Trump and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan met at the White House in a session that was charged with both symbolism and substance. The meeting marked the first face-to-face encounter between the two leaders in years and carried the weight of strained ties, unsettled disputes, and potential realignment. Reporters packed the room eager to probe on sanctions, military sales, Russia, and regional conflicts. The atmosphere was formal yet tense, the two leaders entering side by side and delivering opening remarks before the press began its barrage of questions. Trump started by praising Erdoğan, calling him a friend of long standing and highlighting the potential for Turkey to play a key role in ending regional wars. He noted that Turkey had taken steps before the meeting to show goodwill by ending retaliatory tariffs on certain U.S. goods, a signal that Ankara wanted to reset economic ties. Erdoğan, standing firmly and speaking through a translator, emphasized his commitment to peace and his belief in Trump's ability to broker it. He made it clear that Turkey sought to rejoin the F-35 fighter jet program from which it had been expelled after purchasing Russian S-400 missiles. The first major question came from an American reporter who asked Trump whether the United States would lift sanctions on Turkey and allow it to re-enter the F-35 program. Trump leaned back slightly, choosing his words with caution. He said the issue was under active consideration, hinting strongly that he believed Erdoğan would succeed in securing what he wanted. "I think you'll be successful with buying the things you'd like to buy," Trump told him, adding that a decision could come by the end of the day. Erdoğan nodded, reaffirming Turkey's wish to return to the program and casting it as an issue of alliance trust and strategic partnership. He did not, however, provide any clarity on the fate of the Russian systems that had triggered the sanctions in the first place. A Turkish journalist asked next about energy in Russia. Trump seized the question as an opening to put public pressure on Erdoğan. He criticized Turkey's continued import of Russian oil and gas, especially while the war in Ukraine raged on. He said bluntly that the best thing Turkey could do to help end the war would be to stop buying energy from Moscow. Trump added that Erdoğan knew Vladimir Putin well and could play a role in steering him toward peace, but he made it clear he wanted Turkey to cut the flow of Russian oil. Erdoğan did not take the bait directly. Instead, he spoke about his belief in peace efforts and cast Turkey's energy policies as part of a broader balance he must maintain. He avoided any firm promise to reduce Russian imports, a signal that Turkey would not abandon Moscow so easily given its reliance on Russian supplies. Another reporter asked Erdoğan whether Turkey could guarantee it would not buy more Russian defense systems. Erdoğan chose his words carefully, avoiding commitments. He said Turkey's defense needs are rooted in national security and must be evaluated independently. While he stressed interest in U.S. defense cooperation, he left the door open to further Russian deals. Trump, looking on, interjected to say that continuing such purchases could jeopardize any pathway back into the F-35 program, but he also stressed that negotiations were possible and that he wanted flexibility in finding solutions. The questioning then turned to Gaza and Syria. Trump said he wanted to get the Gaza war over with, describing it as urgent to secure the release of hostages and restore calm. He suggested Erdoğan could serve as a mediator, not only in Gaza but also in Ukraine, positioning him as a bridge between conflicting sides. Erdoğan responded forcefully, condemning Israeli actions in Gaza and casting them as disproportionate and unjust. He emphasized Turkey's role as a defender of Palestinian rights and said regional peace required greater balance. On Syria, though less detailed, he spoke of the need to integrate Kurdish groups under civilian control but reiterated his government's opposition to Kurdish militias he views as threats. The divergence between U.S. and Turkish policies was visible, but both leaders framed their cooperation as vital to stabilizing the region. An economic reporter asked about Turkey's removal of tariffs on American goods. Erdoğan confirmed the move as a goodwill gesture, saying it showed Turkey's intention to build stronger economic ties with the United States. He said he wanted to expand trade, remove barriers, and increase cooperation in multiple sectors. Trump welcomed the decision and used the moment to talk about defense deals and aircraft sales, noting that the two countries could achieve much more together. Behind the optimism, aides on both sides were already quietly negotiating over Boeing airliners, Lockheed Martin fighters, and possible upgrades to Turkey's existing fleet of F-16s. Throughout the press session the underlying themes were clear. Turkey wanted recognition, weapons, and trade access. The United States wanted Turkey to distance itself from Russia and align more closely with Western policies. The sticking points remain significant. U.S. law still blocked easy re-entry into the F-35 program, with sanctions rooted in Turkey's earlier purchase of Russian systems. Turkey showed no willingness to abandon those systems, leaving Washington with a legal and strategic dilemma. On energy, Trump pushed Erdoğan hard, but Turkey's deep dependence on Russian oil and gas made any sudden break unlikely. Still, the mood in the room was one of cautious optimism. Trump repeatedly called Erdoğan a friend, suggesting that personal trust could help overcome institutional barriers. Erdoğan emphasized peace and partnership, portraying Turkey as a key regional actor capable of working with both East and West. Reporters noticed the choreography in their responses. Trump pushing hard on some issues, Erdoğan sidestepping with diplomatic language, both leaving space for further negotiation. After the public session ended, the leaders withdrew for more private talks with aides and ministers. Behind closed doors, discussions reportedly centered on draft agreements for arms sales, legal pathways around existing sanctions, and the scope of economic cooperation. Nothing concrete was signed that day, but the handshake and joint appearance sent a message that both leaders wanted to reset relations after years of turbulence. The day closed with each side projecting success. Trump told reporters as he left the Oval Office that Turkey would likely get what it wanted in terms of weapons, though he noted that some decisions would take time. Erdoğan returned to Ankara able to tell his domestic audience that Turkey's role on the world stage had been recognized and that doors long closed might be reopening. The unresolved issues remain daunting. Without a resolution to the S-400 missile dispute, U.S. officials worry that F-35 technology could be compromised. Without a reduction in Russian energy imports, Washington may continue to doubt Ankara's reliability in isolating Moscow. And without greater alignment in Syria and Gaza, the two sides may find themselves at odds in key regional theaters. Yet the meeting showed that both leaders see value in trying. For Trump, it demonstrated a willingness to negotiate even where law and precedent set limits, portraying him once again as a dealmaker. For Erdoğan, it offered a chance to regain access to advanced weapons, rebuild trade ties, and assert Turkey's position as a vital bridge between East and West. The significance of the press questions lay in what was said as much as what was left unsaid. Asked about sanctions, Trump leaned on optimism without giving guarantees. Asked about Russian energy, Erdoğan talked peace instead of pipelines. Asked about Gaza, Trump promised urgency while Erdoğan condemned Israeli policy. Their answers reflected both the convergence and the persistent divides between Washington and Ankara. In the end, the meeting was less about final agreements and more about testing intentions. Both leaders walked away claiming progress. Both left reporters with carefully chosen lines. And both signaled that while the road ahead would be difficult, neither wanted the relationship to remain stuck in past disputes. What happens next will determine whether this White House encounter becomes a genuine reset or just another chapter in the long and complicated history of U.S.-Turkey ties.